All right, so today we're diving into some pretty deep waters.
Oh,
You know those words you just don't say? We're
yeah.
tackling one of those today,
Hmm.
the N word.
Right.
It's a word loaded with history, pain, controversy.
Yeah. You can say it again.
And honestly, just trying to understand it can feel like navigating a minefield.
You're not wrong.
So,
It triggers intense emotions
yeah,
and debates,
right.
and rightfully so.
Absolutely.
I think what we're hoping to do today is unpack
Yeah,
why this word is so incredibly charged.
exactly.
Yeah.
Our sources today span centuries
Wow.
and perspectives,
Okay.
from historical accounts to contemporary analyses.
Interesting.
And what's fascinating is that understanding why this word is so taboo today
Hmm.
actually requires going all the way back to its surprisingly simple origins.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
So where does it come from?
So it all starts with a journey across languages.
Okay.
The N word comes from the Spanish and Portuguese word negro, meaning black.
Right.
And for a time, that's all it was. Just a simple descriptor,
Wow.
as neutral as the color itself.
That's wild.
It is, right?
To think that this word, so heavily charged now,
Yeah.
started as just a plain description.
Yeah.
When did things start to change?
Well, the 17th century
Okay.
marks a turning point, a
Okay.
dark one,
Oh.
as the transatlantic slave trade exploded.
Right.
The word morphed into its derogatory form,
Yeah.
nigger,
Okay.
and its usage went hand in hand with the dehumanization of enslaved Africans. It became a weapon
Wow.
to justify their horrific treatment.
So it became more than just a word.
Right.
It was a tool of oppression
Yeah.
woven into the very fabric of society.
Precisely.
Wow.
We're talking laws,
Mhm.
social structures,
Yeah.
even casual interactions,
Really?
all using this word to reinforce the idea of black people as less than human,
Wow.
to deny them their basic rights and dignity.
It's crazy how ingrained it was.
It really is
Yeah.
one of our sources.
Mhm.
A historian specializing in this period
Okay.
called it
Yeah.
the linguistic cornerstone of a system built on white supremacy.
That's a chilling way to put it.
It is.
It makes you think about how deeply ingrained this word became
Yeah,
in justifying unimaginable cruelty.
absolutely.
And that legacy, unfortunately, didn't just vanish with the abolition of slavery.
No, it did not.
The N-word continued to fuel segregation and discrimination
Mm-hmm.
well into the 20th century.
Probably.
Jim Crow laws, lynchings, the fight for civil rights.
Right?
It's a chilling echo throughout those dark chapters of American history.
Absolutely.
It's heavy stuff.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder,
What's that?
why, despite all this,
Mm-hmm.
does the word still hold such a strange fascination? It's like this weird paradox. A word that's taboo, yet constantly referenced, debated, even whispered in hushed tones.
Right.
Why the compulsion to even say it?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question.
I know, right?
And our sources point to kind of this tangled web of influences.
Yeah.
It's not just one thing.
Gotcha.
It's a convergence of cultural forces, historical amnesia,
Uh-huh.
and even the psychology of taboo itself.
Okay, let's unpack that web a bit.
All right.
Where do we even begin?
Well, we can't ignore the elephant in the room.
What's that?
Pop culture,
Okay.
specifically hip-hop.
Right.
It's been instrumental in both normalizing and complicating the word's usage.
It's almost like there are two separate conversations happening around the word, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
On one hand, you have black artists reclaiming the word,
Mm-hmm.
using it to express camaraderie, resilience, even turning it into a term of endearment.
Okay.
But this then gets filtered through mainstream media,
Right.
leading to a very distorted perception, especially among young people.
So it's like they're hearing it divorced from the historical context.
Exactly.
Almost like it's lost its sting.
Yes, and that's where the danger lies.
Right.
Because for many, there's a genuine lack of awareness about the word's true weight.
Oh.
One source,
Okay.
a sociologist who studies language and race,
Mm-hmm.
said that many young people hear the word but don't feel the history.
It's like they're missing that visceral understanding
Yeah.
of the pain and suffering behind it.
Yeah,
It becomes just another word devoid of its horrific past.
exactly.
And then you add in the pressures of social dynamics,
Mm-hmm.
especially among teenagers,
Oh, yeah.
the need to fit in, to sound cool, to be down.
Mm-hmm.
It can easily override any moral hesitation.
Absolutely.
There's this idea that if everyone else is saying it,
Right.
it must be okay.
That false sense of permission.
Right. And then there's this whole N-word pass concept.
Oh, yeah. In fact,
The idea that you can earn the right to use it
right.
if you're close enough to someone black.
It's a complete misunderstanding of the power dynamics and the historical context we've been discussing.
Yeah.
It's not about permission.
Right.
It's about recognizing the deep-seated racism embedded in that word. A racism that no amount of friendship can erase.
Wow.
And to further complicate things, there's even a debate within the black community
Oh, really?
about the word's usage.
Interesting.
We see this concept of reclamation,
Okay.
where a word used for oppression is transformed into one of solidarity and identity. It's about taking back power, flipping the script.
That makes sense, but it still feels like a tightrope walk, even within the black community.
You're right.
Yeah.
And that's where we need to dig deeper into the nuances of this reclamation.
Okay.
Because it's anything but simple. We'll explore this more in detail as we go.
Okay.
But one thing is clear.
What's that?
The N-word's impact and meaning shift dramatically depending on who's saying it.
Yeah.
It's like two sides of the same coin,
Huh.
each reflecting a very different reality.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into that.
Yeah, it's like we're dealing with two completely different dictionaries
Oh, yeah.
when it comes to this word.
That's a great way to put it. Like two parallel universes of meaning colliding.
Exactly. And understanding this difference is crucial.
Absolutely.
So on the one hand, you have black usage.
Right.
Think of it as a conversation happening within a community that shares a specific history, a collective trauma.
Right.
The N-word, often modified to nigga, becomes a complex shorthand for resilience,
Yes.
shared experience,
Yeah.
even defiance in the face of oppression.
Exactly.
One of our sources, a cultural critic, described it as a linguistic scar transformed into a badge of honor. It's like reclaiming the very thing that was used to hurt you
Yeah.
and turning it into a source of strength.
Exactly. It's a way of saying we've been through hell and back and we're still here.
Wow.
You know,
Yeah.
we're turning pain into power.
But even within this reclamation, context is everything.
Oh, absolutely.
It's about who you are, who you're with.
Right.
The unspoken understanding of shared experience.
It's like an inside joke.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not just about the word itself.
No.
It's about all the unspoken layers of meaning behind it.
Precisely.
But then you shift to the other side of the coin,
Yeah.
white usage,
Right.
and here the weight of history becomes inescapable.
I can't escape it.
For white people, the N-word remains irrevocably linked
Yes.
to the brutality of slavery, to the systemic racism that has plagued this country for centuries.
Absolutely.
It's like trying to wear a uniform that doesn't belong to you.
Interesting.
You might try to mimic the look, the style,
Yeah.
but you can never truly embody the history and the struggle it represents.
It's a powerful analogy.
Yeah, and it gets to the heart of why it feels so jarring.
Right.
So offensive when a white person uses this word. It's like they're trying to claim ownership of a pain
Yeah.
they have never truly experienced.
Okay.
One source, a black author, put it this way.
Okay.
When a white person says it, I hear centuries of oppression echoing in their voice. It's a reminder of everything we've had to fight against.
Powerful.
And that's why this idea of emulating black culture by using the N-word
Right.
is so misguided.
It really is.
It ignores the historical context, the power dynamics that are always at play.
Uh-huh.
It's not about appropriation.
No.
It's about a fundamental lack of understanding.
Right. And it brings us back to our original question.
Yeah.
Can a word truly be reclaimed when its history is so deeply rooted in pain?
It's a question that doesn't have an easy answer.
Right.
It forces us to confront the complexities of language,
Yeah.
the enduring power of words to both wound and heal.
Words are powerful.
Yeah, and it makes us think about the responsibility we all have in wielding that power. Because ultimately, language shapes how we see the world, how we treat each other.
It really does.
You know, this deep dive has taken us from the origins of a word to the battlegrounds of culture and identity.
Yeah.
We've seen how the N-word has been used as a weapon, a shield, and even in some cases a bridge. And through it all, what's emerged is a stark truth.
What's that?
The meaning of a word can never be divorced from the context in which it's spoken,
Right.
the history it carries, and the power dynamics at play.
Absolutely.
So where does this leave us? What's the takeaway for our listener who's been with us on this journey?
Well, I think the most crucial takeaway is this.
Okay.
Understanding the N-word isn't just about avoiding offense. It's about recognizing the legacy of racism it embodies,
Yeah.
and being mindful of how our words, even seemingly simple ones,
Right.
can perpetuate harm or contribute to healing.
You know, it's interesting because this whole conversation about the N-word feels like a microcosm of so many bigger issues we're grappling with today.
Oh, yeah?
Reclaiming language, navigating cultural boundaries, even understanding the limits of empathy.
I completely agree. This deep dive has taken us on a journey through history, sociology, and even psychology.
And at the heart of it all is this fundamental question.
What's that?
Can we ever truly separate a word from its baggage?
Wow, that's a really good question.
It's like trying to untie a knot
Okay.
that's been tightened over centuries.
Right.
You might be able to loosen it a bit,
Yeah.
but the imprint of that knot, the tension it held, will always remain.
That's a powerful way to put it.
Yeah, and it makes you realize that words aren't just abstract symbols.
Oh, they're not.
They carry the weight of history, the echoes of pain, and the potential for both harm and healing.
Absolutely.
So for our listener who might be feeling overwhelmed by all this, who might be wondering, what am I supposed to do with all this information?
Right.
What would you say to them?
First and foremost, I'd say keep learning.
Okay.
Don't shy away from these difficult conversations. Dive into the sources we've explored. Seek out diverse perspectives and challenge your own assumptions.
Right.
And when it comes to the N-word specifically, remember that while understanding its nuances is crucial, the choice of whether or not to use it is ultimately a personal one.
But it's a choice that shouldn't be made lightly.
Absolutely. It's a choice that demands a deep understanding of the history, the power dynamics, and the very real pain this word has caused and continues to cause.
And it requires empathy, self-awareness, and a recognition of the complexities we've been discussing.
Exactly.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from the surprisingly simple origin of this word to its weaponization as a tool of oppression, and even its attempts at reclamation within Black communities.
Absolutely.
And we've seen how the meaning of this word can shift dramatically depending on who's speaking it.
Right.
Highlighting the inextricable link between language power and identity.
You got it.
This deep dive has been both challenging and enlightening.
It has.
I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of this incredibly complex issue.
And that's the beauty of it, isn't it? There's always more to learn, more to understand.
Right.
I encourage everyone listening to continue exploring this topic. Perhaps by delving into how other cultures have grappled with reclaiming offensive language. Or by researching the impact of racism on language in their own communities.
Those are great suggestions, and for now we'll leave you with this thought.
Okay.
Words have power.
Yes, they do.
Use them wisely. And sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is choosing not to say a word at all.
Very true.
It's interesting because this whole conversation about the N-word, it feels like a microcosm of so many bigger issues.
It does.
We're grappling with today, reclaiming language, navigating cultural boundaries, even understanding the limits of empathy.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
This deep dive has taken us on a journey.
It has.
Through history, sociology, and even psychology.
And at the heart of it all is this fundamental question. Can we ever truly separate a word from its baggage?
That's a that's a really good question.
It's like trying to untie a knot that's been tightened over centuries. You might be able to loosen it a bit, but the imprint of that knot, the tension it held, will always remain.
Yeah, that's a powerful way to put it.
It makes you realize that words aren't just abstract symbols.
No, they're not.
They carry the weight of history, the echoes of pain, the potential for both harm and healing.
Absolutely.
So for our listener who might be feeling overwhelmed by all this, who might be wondering, what am I supposed to do with all this information? What would you say to them?
First and foremost, I'd say just keep learning.
Okay.
Don't shy away from these difficult conversations. Dive into the sources we've explored. Seek out diverse perspectives. And challenge your own assumptions.
When it comes to the N-word specifically, remember that understanding its nuances is crucial.
Yes.
But the choice of whether or not to use it is ultimately a personal one.
But it's not a choice that should be taken lightly.
Exactly.
It demands a deep understanding of the history, the power dynamics, the very real pain this word has caused and continues to cause.
Absolutely. And it requires empathy, self-awareness.
Yes.
And a recognition of the complexities we've been discussing.
Exactly.
We've covered a lot of ground today. From the surprisingly simple origins of this word to its weaponization as a tool of oppression, and even its attempts at reclamation within Black communities.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It really is, and we've seen how the meaning of this word can shift dramatically depending on who's speaking it.
Absolutely.
Highlighting the inextricable link between language power and identity.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, this deep dive has been both challenging and enlightening.
It has.
I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of this incredibly complex issue.
And that's the beauty of it. There's always more to learn.
Right.
More to understand.
So much more.
I encourage everyone listening to continue exploring this topic.
Yeah.
Perhaps by delving into how other cultures have grappled with reclaiming offensive language, or by researching the impact of racism on language in their own communities.
Those are great suggestions.
Thank you.
And for now, we'll leave you with this thought. Words have power. Use them wisely, and sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is choosing not to say a word at all.
Very true.